For decades, millions of fans watched Stevie Nicks become one of the most famous women in music. They saw the sold-out concerts, the unforgettable songs, and the legendary success. But behind the fame was a love story that never fully disappeared. Now, at 76 years old, Stevie is opening up about the man who left the deepest mark on her heart, who was the love of her life, and why did their story continue to haunt her for so many years. The answer is far more emotional than most people realize. Stevie Nicks was not born into fame. Long before the world knew her name, she was simply a young girl with a powerful imagination and a deep love for music. She was born on May 26, 1948, in Phoenix, Arizona. From an early age, music became a huge part of her life. Her grandfather, Aaron Jess Ije Nicks, was a country singer who encouraged her talent. He saw something special in Stevie long before anyone else did. While other children were busy with ordinary hobbies, Stevie was already writing songs and dreaming about performing on big stages. But dreams do not always come easy. As her family moved from city to city because of her father's work, Stevie often found herself starting over. New schools, new friends, new surroundings. It was not always easy to fit in. Yet through every change, one thing stayed with her: music. During her teenage years, Stevie became fascinated by songwriting. She loved creating stories through lyrics. Music gave her a way to express emotions she could not always put into ordinary words. Even then, she seemed drawn to themes of love, loss, hope, and mystery. What do you think was the biggest turning point in Stevie Nicks' life? Was it her talent, her determination, or meeting the right person at the right time? Share your thoughts below. As the 1960s came to an end, Stevie was determined to build a career in music. But the road ahead was uncertain. Success was far from guaranteed. Thousands of talented people were chasing the same dream. Then something happened that would change the entire direction of her life. While attending college in California, Stevie met a young musician named Lindsey Buckingham. Their connection was immediate. Both were passionate about music. Both dreamed of making it big. And both believed they could create something special together. At first, nobody could have predicted how important this meeting would become. They began working on music together, sharing ideas, writing songs, and developing a unique sound. Their partnership quickly grew stronger. What started as a musical connection soon became something much deeper. Neither of them had money. Neither had fame. In fact, there were moments when their future looked uncertain. Stevie worked various jobs to help support their musical ambitions, while Lindsey focused on recording and performing. But despite the struggles, they refused to give up. Little did they know that the relationship they were building during these difficult years would eventually inspire some of the most famous songs in rock history. And as their bond grew stronger, a life-changing opportunity was quietly waiting around the corner. What happened next would transform two struggling musicians into global stars, but would also begin a love story that fame could never protect. The late 1960s and early 1970s were filled with uncertainty for Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. They had talent, passion, and big dreams, but dreams alone could not pay the bills. The young couple spent years chasing opportunities while trying to build a future together. They played music, wrote songs, and believed that someday people would hear what they were creating. Yet success seemed frustratingly far away. There were times when money was so tight that life became a daily struggle. Stevie worked multiple jobs to help support them. One of those jobs was cleaning houses. While many future stars might have given up under such pressure, Stevie remained committed to their shared dream. Their relationship became more than romance. They were teammates fighting the same battle. In 1973, they released an album together called Buckingham Nicks. They poured their hearts into the project, hoping it would open doors. The album showcased their talent and chemistry, both musically and personally. But there was a problem. The album failed commercially. For many artists, that kind of disappointment could have ended everything. Years of effort seemed to lead nowhere. Record labels lost interest. The future looked uncertain once again. But behind the scenes, something important was happening. The album eventually found its way into the hands of people who recognized the duo's extraordinary potential. One of those people was Mick Fleetwood. At the time, Fleetwood Mac was going through major changes. The band needed new energy. They needed new voices. When Mick heard Lindsey Buckingham's guitar work, he became interested immediately. However, Lindsey had one condition. If he joined Fleetwood Mac, Stevie had to join too. That decision would change music history forever. Suddenly, the struggling couple who had spent years fighting for recognition found themselves stepping into one of the biggest rock bands in the world. However, success brought new challenges. The world often assumes that fame solves problems. In reality, fame can create entirely new ones. As Fleetwood Mac's popularity exploded, Stevie and Lindsey entered a world filled with pressure, expectations, endless touring, and constant public attention. The relationship that once thrived during difficult times would soon face tests neither of them expected. And this was only the beginning. The world saw two talented musicians joining a famous band. What they did not see was how the pressure of sudden success would slowly begin to change everything between them. If you enjoy documentaries that reveal the hidden stories behind fame, success, and heartbreak, subscribe because the next chapter uncovers a moment when Stevie and Lindsey's relationship began to unravel while Fleetwood Mac became a global phenomenon. What happened next would inspire some of the most emotional songs ever recorded and leave wounds that lasted for decades. When Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, everything changed almost overnight. The band's self-titled album became a huge success. Songs filled the radio. Concert crowds grew larger. Suddenly, Stevie was no longer a young woman struggling to make ends meet. She had become one of the most recognizable voices in rock music. For a while, it seemed like the dream they had chased for years was finally coming true. But success often comes with a hidden cost. Behind the scenes, the pressure was becoming overwhelming. Fleetwood Mac was not just a band. It was a group of strong personalities, creative ambitions, and complicated relationships. Long recording sessions, constant touring, and life in the spotlight created tension that was impossible to ignore. At the center of it all were Stevie and Lindsey. The couple who once supported each other through years of struggle now found themselves facing challenges that neither knew how to handle. Fame brought opportunities, but it also brought stress, jealousy, and emotional distance. As Fleetwood Mac worked on what would become Rumors, one of the most successful albums in music history, personal relationships inside the band were falling apart. Stevie and Lindsey's romance was reaching a breaking point. Arguments became more common. Communication became harder. The pressure of balancing love and a demanding career created cracks that continued to grow. Yet something remarkable happened. Instead of hiding their emotions, they poured them into their music. Many of the songs created during this period carried real feelings from their relationship. Pain, frustration, longing, and heartbreak found their way into the lyrics. The music became a reflection of what they were living through. To fans, the song sounded powerful. To Stevie and Lindsey, they were deeply personal. Every performance became emotionally complicated. Night after night, they stood on stage together, singing songs connected to a relationship that was slowly slipping away. Then came the moment neither could avoid. Their romantic relationship ended. For most couples, a breakup means going separate ways. But Stevie and Lindsey did not have that option. They still had to work together. They still had performed together. They still had to stand in front of thousands of fans while carrying the weight of unresolved emotions. And despite the pain, Fleetwood Mac's success continued growing. The world saw a legendary band at the top of its game. What the world did not fully understand was that some of the greatest music being created came directly from heartbreak. However, this was not the end of the story. In many ways, the breakup would become the defining emotional chapter of Stevie's life. The songs became timeless. The fame became enormous. But the love she had once believed in was gone. Or was it? Because even after the relationship ended, neither Stevie nor Lindsey would completely escape the connection they had shared. And what happened in the years that followed would keep fans wondering about them for decades. The end of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's relationship did not erase their feelings. If anything, it made them more complicated. Most people experience heartbreak in private. They cry behind closed doors. They lean on friends and family. Eventually, they try to move forward. Stevie and Lindsey lived a very different reality. Their heartbreak played out in front of the world. Every concert brought them face to face. Every recording session forced them to work together. Every interview brought questions about their past. The emotions never had a chance to completely disappear. For Stevie, songwriting became both an escape and a way to process pain. Many fans believe some of her most powerful songs carried pieces of her personal experiences. Through music, she could express feelings that were difficult to say directly. Love, regret, longing, and unanswered questions became themes that connected deeply with listeners. What made these songs so powerful was their honesty. People around the world related to them because heartbreak is something almost everyone understands. Whether rich or poor, famous or unknown, losing someone important leaves a mark. As Stevie's career continued to rise, she also built an impressive solo career outside Fleetwood Mac. Songs like Edge of 17 helped establish her as a major star in her own right. From the outside, everything looked perfect. She had fame. She had success. She had money. She had millions of fans. But success does not always heal emotional wounds. Many years passed, yet questions about Lindsey continued to follow her. Fans noticed the emotional energy that still existed whenever the two performed together. Interviews occasionally reveal hints of affection mixed with frustration, respect mixed with sadness. The story never seemed fully finished. This is something many people watching can probably understand. Sometimes a person leaves your life, but they never completely leave your heart. The relationship ends, yet the memories remain. Certain people become part of your story forever. Many people watching this have faced moments where they felt they lost someone they truly cared about. Life moves forward, but some connections leave lessons that stay with us for years. Sometimes the hardest chapters shape who we become. As Stevie entered new stages of her life, she continued creating music and inspiring audiences around the world. Yet beneath the success remained a question that fans could never stop asking. Was Lindsey Buckingham truly the great love of her life? For decades, Stevie rarely answered that question in a direct way. But time has a way of changing people. And as the years passed, Stevie became more willing to reflect on the relationships that shaped her journey. What she would eventually reveal at 76 years old would remind millions that even legends carry memories they never fully leave behind. As the years moved forward, Stevie Nicks became far more than a member of Fleetwood Mac. She became a music icon. Her unique voice, flowing stage presence, and unforgettable songs made her one of the most respected women in rock history. Awards arrived. Albums sold millions of copies. New generations discovered her music. Decades after her career began, people were still filling arenas to see her perform. From the outside, it seemed like she had everything. But fame has a strange way of hiding loneliness. While Stevie achieved extraordinary success, she often spoke openly about the sacrifices that came with her career. Relationships were difficult. Constant travel, recording schedules, and life in the spotlight created challenges that many people never saw. She briefly married Kim Anderson in 1983 after the tragic death of her close friend Robin Anderson. Stevie later admitted that the marriage came from grief and heartbreak rather than lasting romantic compatibility. The relationship ended quickly, leaving her once again searching for emotional stability. As the years passed, Stevie remained focused on music. Her career continued to grow, but questions about love never completely disappeared. Interviewers asked about Lindsey Buckingham. Fans asked about Lindsey Buckingham. Even decades after their breakup, the public remained fascinated by their story. Why? Because people could still see the connection. There was history between them that could not be erased. Sometimes they appeared close. Other times they seemed distant. Their relationship evolved through friendship, conflict, mutual respect, and occasional tension. Yet, one thing remained clear. Neither could completely remove the other from their life story. What happened next surprised many people. As Stevie grew older, she began looking back on her life with greater honesty. Time often changes how people see the past. Pain softens. Anger fades. Memories become clearer. She started speaking more openly about the people who shaped her journey. And among all those people, one name continued to stand above the rest. Lindsey Buckingham. The world saw awards and achievements. The world saw a legendary career. But behind those accomplishments was a woman reflecting on the relationship that influenced some of the most important moments of her life. Years turned into decades. The songs remained. The memories remained. And so did the questions. Could someone truly be the love of your life, even if you never spent your life together? For Stevie, the answer seemed to become clearer with age. What she would eventually admit would not be a shocking scandal or a dramatic revelation. Instead, it would be something far more powerful. It would be an honest reflection on love, loss, and the lasting impact one person can have on another, even after a lifetime has passed. By the time Stevie Nicks reached her mid-70s, she had lived a life that few people could imagine. She had traveled the world. She had sold millions of records. She had become a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She had inspired generations of artists. Yet, when conversations turned to love, one chapter of her life continued to stand out above all the others. Over the years, Stevie gave interviews where she reflected on her relationship with Lindsey Buckingham. While the details sometimes change with time and perspective, one theme appeared again and again. Their connection had been unlike anything else in her life. It was not a simple love story. It was messy. It was passionate. It was painful. And it never completely disappeared. As Stevie looked back on the past, she often spoke about how young they were when they started chasing their dreams together, before Fleetwood Mac, before fame, before millions of fans knew their names. They had built those dreams side by side. That history mattered. No matter how much time passed, it remained part of who she was. Many fans interpreted her later comments as a reflection of a deep truth. Lindsey Buckingham was a great love story of her life. Even if the relationship itself did not survive, that idea resonated with millions of people. Not every great love ends with a happy ending. Sometimes two people are right for a chapter of life, but unable to stay together forever. Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes success changes everything. And sometimes love leaves behind memories that last much longer than the relationship itself. Stevie's reflections carried a sense of maturity that only comes with age. Rather than focusing on old arguments or past disappointments, she seemed more interested in understanding what the relationship had meant. The pain was real. The heartbreak was real. But so was the love. For many viewers, this is perhaps the most powerful part of her story. Life is not always about perfect endings. Sometimes it is about appreciating what a person brought into your life, even if they could not stay forever. Stevie's honesty gave fans a rare glimpse into the emotional reality behind decades of music and fame. The woman who had spent years singing about love, loss, and longing was now looking back on her own story with remarkable openness. And as she reflected on the past, one final question remained. What would Stevie Nicks' legacy ultimately be remembered for? The music? The fame? The records? Or the deeply human story hidden behind them all? As the years continue to pass, Stevie Nicks remains one of the most admired figures in music history. Her songs still play on radio stations around the world. Young artists continue to cite her as an inspiration. Fans who first discovered her in the 1970s now share her music with their children and grandchildren. That kind of legacy is rare. But Stevie's story is about more than awards, records, and sold-out concerts. It is about being human. Throughout her life, she experienced many of the same emotions that ordinary people face every day. She felt hope. She felt disappointment. She experienced success beyond imagination, yet she also carried heartbreak that never fully disappeared. Perhaps that is why so many people connect with her story. Behind the superstar was a woman trying to understand love, relationships, and the choices that shaped her life. The relationship between Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham became one of the most famous personal stories in rock history. Their music captured emotions that millions of listeners recognized in their own lives. And even decades later, people remain fascinated by their journey. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Their story reminds us that some relationships leave permanent marks on our hearts. Even when life moves forward, even when careers grow, and even when decades pass, certain people remain connected to our most important memories. For Stevie, Lindsey represented more than a former partner. He represented the years before fame, the dreams they chased together, the struggles they survived, and the extraordinary journey that changed both of their lives forever. Looking back, It becomes easier to understand why she has continued to speak about him with such emotion. He was part of the foundation of her story. And foundations are not easily forgotten. The world often focuses on celebrity headlines, controversies, and dramatic moments. But the deeper truth is usually much simpler. At its heart, Stevie Nicks' story is about love, ambition, sacrifice, and the lasting power of memory. It is about how one person can influence your life long after the relationship.